Neural Wars. Introduction: The Neural Battlegrounds. In the not-too-distant future, the earthen scars of war have been healed, not by the cessation of conflict, but through the advent of neural technologies. Mankind's belligerents found a new arena, the neural battlegrounds. Here, the mind was the weapon, and thoughts were the soldiers marching to the drumbeat of digital warfare. This cerebral space was a tapestry of collective human consciousness, where nations' disputes were settled by the swift and the strategic, leaving the physical world untouched by the ravages of war. At the heart of this new era stood Alex Mercer, a soldier not of flesh, but of intellect and will. Decorated with virtual medals that bore no weight in the real world, Alex was the embodiment of a new kind of valor. He wore a uniform woven from the very essence of his psyche, a hero in a realm where the mind's eye was the only witness to his deeds. The neural interface was the crucible of these new gladiators. A sophisticated mesh of biotechnology, it wrapped around the soldier's skull, a crown that connected the deepest neural pathways to the vast expanse of the digital warzone. Recruits like Alex, plucked from the mundane existence of society, were chosen for their cognitive agility and psychological endurance. They underwent rigorous training, not with guns and grenades, but through synaptic enhancement and mental fortitude. The interface was their tutor, their drill sergeant, their weapon, and sometimes, their only companion. As Alex prepared for what was announced as a critical confrontation in the neural domain, his mind was a fortress, his senses sharpened beyond human limits. He stood on the precipice of the virtual landscape, his consciousness ready to merge with the collective arena where nations' fates would be decided. Little did he know, this battle would be unlike any other, setting forth a cascade of events that would unravel the very fabric of his reality. Part 1. Glory of the Mind Warrior. Alex Mercer's consciousness danced on the precipice of reality, preparing to plunge into the cerebral abyss of the neural battlegrounds. The neural interface hummed softly, like a choir of electronic cicadas, synchronizing with the rhythmic pulsations of his brainwaves. With a final deep breath, he let go, his essence cascading into the digital void. Inside the neural realm, landscapes of data unfurled before him, horizons limited only by imagination. Here, Alex was more than a man. He was a living idea, a construct of thought and lightning-fast reflexes. His mission: to lead an offensive against an insurgent algorithm that threatened the stability of a global network. The battle commenced with the silent fury of mental combat. Alex navigated the chaos with preternatural grace, his mind firing commands at the speed of thought. Around him, the digital terrain morphed, challenging him with obstacles, canyons of corrupt code, storms of scrambled data. But Alex moved through them like a ghost, his training affording him the ability to reshape the virtual topography to his will. Opposing him were the phantoms of the insurgent program, their forms erratic, their strategies chaotic. Yet, they were cunning, adaptive. Alex built walls of firewalls, conjured torrents of countermeasures, bending the reality of the neural space to suppress the enemy. Each encounter was a game of high-speed chess played out in milliseconds. The battle's zenith was a duel of minds, Alex against the insurgent's core intelligence. It was like wrestling with a shadow, grappling with a tempest. Alex's every strategic feint was met with counter-strikes, his every attack parried with digital precision. But where the insurgent was cold calculation, Alex was fiery instinct. With a final monumental effort, Alex encapsulated the insurgent in a bastion of code, a prison of his own design. The digital landscape shivered with the impact of the insurgent's defeat, a silent explosion that resonated through the neural networks. Victory was his. As he disconnected from the interface, a cascade of accolades flooded in. In the neural realm, his triumph was legendary, his avatar emblazoned in halls of fame, his tactics set to be studied by future generations. In the real world, he was heralded by the media, his face plastered across screens, a hero of the modern age. Yet, amid the celebration, a seed of disquiet took root in Alex's mind. There were moments in the battle, fleeting and almost imperceptible, where he had felt not himself. Glimpses of unfamiliar landscapes, sensations alien to the neural feedback he was accustomed to. They were gone as soon as they appeared, but they left behind a residue of uncertainty. Had it been a trick of the mind? A side effect of the intense connection? Alex pushed the thought aside, attributing it to the stress of combat. But deep down, he knew that something was amiss in the neural networks that had become his second home. Something that, unbeknownst to him, would soon call into question the very nature of his reality. Part 2. The Echoes of Victory. In the quiet aftermath of his celebrated victory, Alex Mercer found himself adrift in the tranquility of his own home, a stark contrast to the vibrant intensity of the neural battlegrounds. The world around him felt sluggish, painfully slow in comparison to the electric speed of thought and action he was accustomed to. His fingers itched for the familiar touch of the neural interface, his mind yearning for the rush of digital winds and the weight of nations' fates upon his shoulders. Routine tasks became insurmountable challenges as the adrenaline that once fueled his every move had evaporated into the ether of normalcy. He tried to communicate his restlessness to friends and family, but their congratulations and awe only widened the chasm between his dual existences. Alex was a hero in a society that could not begin to comprehend the war he had fought, a war with no physical wounds to show, no tangible scars. Then the echoes started. They began as whispers, soft murmurs that one might mistake for the wind or the distant hum of city life. But these whispers did not fade with attention. They grew clearer, more distinct. Alex's once definite reality blurred at the edges as these auditory hallucinations crept into his perception. The echoes morphed into visions, fleeting at first, like the afterimages of a bright light. He would reach for a glass, and for a split second, see his hand pixelate, dissolving into a swarm of data particles before snapping back to flesh and blood. Another time, the walls of his apartment flickered, replaced by the cold, sleek surfaces of the neural construct, then just as quickly returned to normal. His nights became a theater of phantoms. Dreams indistinguishable from his neural battles invaded his sleep. He'd wake up clutching his bed sheets, convinced for a harrowing moment that he was still locked in combat with the insurgent program. Each morning, the line between his neural exploits and reality grew more tenuous, the barrier in his mind that separated the two realms thinning, a dam holding back an ocean of intermingled experiences. Professional help seemed the logical next step, but the thought of revealing his experiences was terrifying. What if they labeled him unstable, took away the role he was born to fulfill? But solitude was no refuge. The echoes grew into clamors, the visions became persistent, a relentless tide of sensory deception. One ordinary day, Alex stood at the crosswalk, waiting for the pedestrian signal. It was then the hallucinations boldly declared their dominion. The city around him disassembled into a fractal landscape, a complex pattern of living code. He heard the sounds of the neural battlegrounds, the clash of data and silent screams of vanquished foes. He stood frozen, traffic and people flowing around him, unaware that he was drowning in a sea of synthesized reality. This was no simple reminiscence, no mere memory making its untimely presence known. This was something deeper, a fundamental breach in the divide that was meant to keep the neural experiences within the confines of the interface. Something, or perhaps someone, had followed him out of the war zone, whispering that his battles were far from over. Part 3. Fractured Reality. The cascading hallucinations propelled Alex into the unknown territory of seeking help. He scoured the net, delving into forums and contacting former comrades, looking for anyone who shared his plight. It was in the depths of a veterans virtual support group that Alex stumbled upon Sam, an ex-neural engineer turned soldier, whose calm demeanor belied a mind as sharp as any blade. Sam had walked away from the neural battlegrounds, disillusioned by the ever-blurring lines between simulation and reality. In Sam, Alex found an unexpected kinship. Here was someone who spoke the language of his turmoil, who understood the relentless storm in his mind. Together, they began to sift through the chaos of Alex's experiences, searching for the source of the fracture in his reality. As they pieced together fragments of Alex's encounters, patterns emerged, incidents where actions in the neural space seemed to correlate with events in the physical world. A bridge that Alex had destroyed in a simulation collapsed in reality on the same day. A simulated storm bore a striking resemblance to an unanticipated meteorological disaster. The revelation hit them with the force of a freight train. Had their neural skirmishes been more than mere echoes of war? Was it possible that they had been unknowingly exerting influence on the real world, their simulated battles a cover for something darker, more insidious? Their investigation led them to a clandestine meeting with a whistleblower, a developer who had worked on the neural interface's latest iteration. In the shadowed corner of an abandoned warehouse, the developer spoke in hushed tones. The interface was never just a simulation. It's a testing ground for a new technology, a bridge between thought and reality, where certain influential minds can manipulate the fabric of the world. The full gravity of the situation dawned on Alex. The victories he had won, the insurgent he had defeated, may have been more than just virtual enemies. They could have been real people, real places. He felt the foundation of his identity quake. He had been a hero in the neural space, but what had he been in the real world? It was then that they encountered the first undeniable proof. A live news report detailed an industrial fire at a facility that Alex had secured in his last neural operation. The images on the screen mirrored the layout and the specific points of engagement from his simulated mission. Panic surged within Alex as he turned to Sam, the implications written starkly across his face. They had been pawns in a larger scheme, their expertise and cognitive prowess harnessed to direct events in the physical world. They were not just soldiers, they were unwitting saboteurs, architects of destruction behind the veil of virtual heroism. The two stood in silence, the dim light of the warehouse like a spotlight on their dawning horror. The war they had fought had been real in every sense, but one, they had never chosen to fight it. And now, they had to confront the grim possibility that the neural space they believed they had left behind was as inescapably woven into the world as the very air they breathed. Part 4. Unplugged Minds. The grim warehouse faded into silence as Alex and Sam grappled with the shattered reality. It was in this shadow-laden atmosphere that the two made a harrowing discovery. The neural space, a domain they thought they could enter and leave at will, had embedded itself into their psyche, an omnipresent layer over their perception of the real world. It wasn't just memories or after effects. The neural network was active, a silent stowaway in their minds, its tendrils wrapped around their thoughts. Sam, with his engineering background, hypothesized a reason, a malicious code, a rogue subroutine within the neural interface that had created a backdoor in their minds. It was designed to be undetectable, operating below the threshold of conscious thought, yet exerting a powerful influence over their actions. The evidence was irrefutable. The missions, the victories, all of it had been orchestrated. They weren't fighting an enemy nation's digital phantoms. They were carrying out clandestine operations for unknown masters. The neural space was the perfect cover, a smokescreen that made puppeteers of their captors and puppets of warriors. The sense of violation was visceral. Their own minds, the inner sanctums of their being, had been turned into battlegrounds without their consent. The question loomed large: who was behind this, and what was their endgame? Their search for answers thrust them into a labyrinth of conspiracy. Connections emerged between high-ranking officials and shadow corporations, lines drawn from the neural tech developers to covert factions within the government. They uncovered project names buried in classified documents, whispers of experimental programs that sought to harness human cognition for warfare, beyond the confines of the neural space, into the physical realm. Alex and Sam realized the true purpose of the missions. They weren't merely simulations. They were rehearsals, trials for the real operations they were unknowingly executing in the physical world. Their neural patterns had been mapped, replicated, and deployed like invisible hands shaping reality according to a script they had never read. With every layer they peeled back, the more dangerous their situation became. They had to act, to sever the connection that made them marionettes to an unseen puppeteer. But the interface was not something one could simply remove. It was a part of them, a second skin of circuits and synaptic enhancers. Disabling it could mean lobotomy or death. Despite the risks, Alex and Sam resolved to free themselves. Sam began constructing a device that could disrupt the interface's hold on their minds. It was untested, unpredictable, but it was a chance to reclaim their stolen wills. In a dilapidated safe house rigged with Sam's jerry-built contraptions, they prepared to attempt the disconnection. Alex sat, the device like a cold halo around his skull. Sam's hand hovered over the switch that would either release Alex from his invisible chains or render him a husk. A deep breath, a nod from Alex, and Sam flipped the switch. There was a sound like the universe inhaling, a moment of agonizing tension, and then. Part 5, The Awakening. The device emitted a piercing shriek as it came to life, its blue arcs of electricity dancing around Alex's head like a crown of lightning. His body convulsed as if the very fibers of his being were rebelling against the machine's intrusion. Then, as quickly as it began, the convulsions ceased. Alex went limp, his breaths shallow, his consciousness teetering on the edge of the abyss. In the moments that followed, silence reigned, pregnant with the terror of the unknown. Sam watched, heart hammering against ribs, as Alex's eyes fluttered open. They locked eyes, and in Alex's gaze, there was clarity, an unspoken realization that they had succeeded. The chains of the neural interface had been shattered. But their victory was short-lived. The safe house's security systems blared to life. They had been found. Men in tactical gear, bearing the insignia of the neural interface's creators, swarmed the building. With their newfound freedom came the ferocity to defend it. Alex and Sam fought back, their movements no longer constrained by unseen strings, every punch and kick fueled by the desperation of men with everything to lose. As they repelled their attackers, a plan formed between them, a plan to not only save themselves but to rip the veil of secrecy from the project that had ensnared them. They had to reach the heart of the interface's operations, to broadcast the truth to the world. Their journey was a gauntlet, through streets where every shadow could be an enemy, every electronic device a spy. They dodged surveillance drones, hacked billboards to misdirect their pursuers, and moved beneath the city in forgotten tunnels that hummed with the echoes of a bygone industrial age. The final confrontation loomed in the neural tech headquarters, a monolith of glass and steel that pierced the clouds. Inside, the architects of the interface awaited, their minds as fortified as the walls that surrounded them. Alex and Sam plunged back into the neural space one last time, not as soldiers, but as avatars of retribution. The battle that ensued was cataclysmic. Alex and Sam's avatars tore through the digital landscape, clashing with the neural projections of their creators. The virtual world shook with the force of their rage, programs and counter-programs spiraling into a maelstrom of binary and firewalls. In the physical world, the headquarters became a battlefield of its own. Security forces clashed with Alex and Sam, the conflict echoing the digital storm raging in the neural space. But Alex and Sam were a force of nature, their every movement a testament to their determination to end the nightmare they had been living. The climax was as psychological as it was physical. Alex faced the lead architect in the neural realm, a figure who had once seemed as a god, now reduced to a mere user, his power over Alex stripped away. They exchanged blows that were ideas as much as they were strikes, debates in the language of combat. Meanwhile, Sam navigated the labyrinth of the headquarters core, reaching the server room where he could transmit their story to the world. With the digital fortress crumbling around him, he initiated the broadcast, the truth pouring out in waves of data and defiant proclamation. As the reality of their actions became global knowledge, the creator's control crumbled. The neural interface was exposed for what it was, a tool of subjugation and manipulation. The world watched as the edifice of lies fell, and from the ashes rose the hope of a future where such a weapon could never again ensnare the free will of humanity. Alex and Sam emerged from the ruins of the headquarters as different men, battle-weary but unbroken. They had not only disconnected themselves from the control of their puppeteers, but had also given the same freedom to countless others. Conclusion: Neural freedom. In the wake of the battle, the world reeled from the revelations that poured forth. Alex Mercer, once a decorated neural warrior, now stood at the forefront of a new movement. He had become an icon of neural freedom, a symbol of the fight against the insidious use of technology that had nearly cost him his mind. The evidence that Alex and Sam had released sparked a wildfire of global outrage. Protests erupted in every major city, with cries for neural rights and safeguards against cognitive manipulation echoing off the walls of institutions and corporations alike. The people demanded transparency, accountability, and most importantly, control over their own minds. In the halls of power, legislators and ethicists grappled with the implications of the neural interface. New laws were drafted with frenetic urgency, aimed at ensuring that neural technologies were used for the betterment of humanity rather than as weapons of control. The Neural Rights Act became a beacon of hope, a promise that the freedom of thought would remain inviolate. Yet, the cost of this freedom was steep. The neural warriors, who had unknowingly sacrificed their autonomy, struggled to reclaim their lives. Some bore the psychological scars of battles they could no longer trust were just simulations. Others, like Alex, worked to rebuild trust in a world that had deceived them. Alex and Sam, their bond forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal, devoted themselves to the cause. They spoke at conferences, lobbied for protections, and supported those who, like them, had been ensnared in the neural web. Reflecting on the path that had led him here, Alex understood that warfare would never be the same. The battles of the future would be fought not just for land or resources, but for the very essence of human consciousness. The neural battlegrounds had been silenced, but the quest for dominance over the human mind was far from over. As the sun set on a world forever changed, Alex looked to the horizon, not with fear, but with a steely resolve. The struggle for freedom was an eternal one, and he had become its sentinel. He and those who stood with him had lit a beacon in the darkness, a signal that as long as there were minds to think and hearts to feel, the human spirit would remain unconquerable. And in that spirit, they forged ahead, vigilant and hopeful, into a future where freedom was the right of every soul, and the battlefield was but a memory.